Hi Flosstube, my name's Judy and I'm an Aussie living in a Kiwi world. This is my first Flosstube and it's Saturday the 16th of July 2022. My first Flosstube and I'm a little bit nervous, so please bear with me if I get a little bit kerfuffled as I go through and try to show you some projects. Firstly, just a little bit about myself. I'm a mum of 3. I've got 2 stepchildren, so a total of 5 children in our family. I've got an amazing husband, 3 beautiful grandchildren, 2 boys and a girl, and also 2 dogs and a cat. I'm sure you'll hear the dogs over time because they like to actually bark at the wind that goes past their nose. So they're toy poodles, and apparently that's what they like to do. So little did I know that when I was actually buying them as pups. So cross stitch has actually been my passion for quite some time, and I started when I was very little. I'm not actually sure how I come about learning how to do cross stitch. I think it was a neighbour that was sort of showing me, because my mum's a very crafty person and used to knit and crochet and tat and do all those lovely things, sew and things like that. The only thing I picked up crafty from her was to crochet. And in 2005, when I moved from Australia to New Zealand, I stayed with my mum a month before I moved over, and she sort of picked up the cross stitch that I was doing at the time and sort of had a go and loved it. So had spent the last since 2005 really loving it until she passed in April of 2020. So it was something that we enjoyed together. We used to do video calls and chat and stuff and show our projects to each other, and it was quite a lovely thing that brought us closer. So enough about me. I will go through some projects that I've actually been doing and some that I've actually finished for this year as well. There's behind me, you'll probably see over my shoulder here, which is my whiteboard. Last year I was made aware of a challenge group which is called No New Starts. That was from a lady that's from the New Zealand cross stitch group here, and I'd never sort of really been into a challenge like that before, so I wanted to sort of check it out and see what it was all about. So the No New Starts obviously meant that from the 1st of January I was only able to work on anything that was a WIP, a work in progress, and it had to have at least 200 stitches on it. So I went hunting for projects that were WIPs that had 200 stitches on it, and some of the options for the No New Starts group was you could do 22 projects in 22 projects for 22 or 2022, or you can just work your WIPs. So I decided to sign up for the 22 in 22, thinking that that would be plenty of projects to actually keep me going, and I'm lucky if I've even got 22 projects on the go. Well, I soon come to believe that I've got way more than 22. So it was actually quite scary to see how many that I'd actually had in my stash. So I pulled out, kept going, kept counting, got past 22, and decided that as I was 50 last year, I would stop at 50. So yes, I know, 50 projects that had been started and not finished, and I possibly could have went further. So that's a bit scary, but enough about that. So currently, as far as you're aware, I've got 50 WIPs, and we will talk about the balance of all those WIPs at another time. So 50 WIPs starting on the 1st of January, and I was set. So my personal goal was to make sure that I stitched on every single one of those WIPs within a 3-month period. So within the group there's moderators or admin, and they check on your projects throughout that time to make sure you've done a certain amount of stitches as an overall. So not on each project, you can just choose one project, but as long as you've got a certain amount of stitches, and I believe that is 4,500 over the quarter, which is a lot of stitches for some people, not so many for others. I stitch quite a bit, so it is quite reasonable for me to do that in a week, to do that amount of stitches in a week. So I believe that over the 3 months I would have been great to be able to get a few stitches on each of my projects of the 50. So started with 50 projects, and as of today in July, I'm down to 40 projects. That board behind me is actually, each one of those pictures is one of my projects, and I just write things on it as it gets called for the likes of Whipgo, which is a Jessie Marie Does Stuff, I believe her name is, and her channel is. And I'm not, if you don't know what Whipgo is, then maybe jump on and just do a Google search for Whipgo, or on Facebook search for Whipgo, and you'll find lots of information. It's definitely a help to get some projects, some stitches on some projects. So that is part of my Whipgo sort of, that's how my Whipgo sort of started, is that I put my projects on the board, created 2 Whipgo boards, and decided that my goal for every single project on there was to stitch 500 stitches, so that by the end of the year I would have at least got 500 stitches on every single project. As I was going through that, that meant that I have 4 projects that actually get called on a monthly basis based on the numbers that she calls, which was actually quite doable. In the challenge group, the No New Starts challenge, they also have a major challenge, like a yearly one, that's actually for a road trip, which is around the United States. As I've never been there, I thought this will be really fun. One, I can work on my WIPs. The other one is that I get to know a little bit about the US. It has actually made me realise I'd like to visit there one day and maybe go to a retreat or StitchCon or something like that, somewhere where they've got some really nice places to stitch, and some lovely people over there that I know just from Facebook and things, or also from YouTube. So it is one of now my bucket list to actually visit over there. So as we've been going along this project, this process of the No New Starts in the road trip, it tells you need to stitch a certain amount of stitches from this place to the next place. So I've been able to get some stitches in on lots of different projects in relation to that. So far this year, I believe I'm at about 130,000 stitches. I think about that much. I'll have to actually double check on that, but I would never have been able to hit that figure if I didn't have the prompts of the No New Starts group to actually give me the challenge to keep going. So the young lady that I mentioned about what got me onto Flosstube, she then obviously opened up the doors to another challenge group, and I've now joined that challenge group, and I now stitch for lots of different reasons. It makes it exciting. It gives me the push to actually stitch on the projects in relation to certain tasks that they provide, and it's fun, and the people that are in the groups are absolutely lovely. So I won't mention them all personally, only because I think if I miss someone, it's not my intention, but they all lovely. As a whole, everybody's lovely. So enough about that. I will actually show you through some finished projects that I've actually done. These are not fully finished projects. I do not do fully finished projects, so if it's what you actually like in relation to cross stitch, then you might have to skip on by. These are definitely only just stitched on fabric, and that's where they stay in I roll them up when I'm finished and put them into like a cylinder, and that's where they stay until I sort of decide that I'm going to either gift it out to someone, or I eventually want to put it into a frame. So I'm definitely a process stitcher, which is what I've worked out over the last little while, is I just love stitching, and yeah, so that's where it is. So my first project, I'm not very good with names of projects, unfortunately, and some of them being around for a little while, I've forgotten even what fabric they're on, what count, all that sort of stuff. So I'll try to give you the details as I remember them. And being 50 now, my memory is not as good as what it was 20 years ago. So this is a ladybird project, which is actually black work, and hopefully you'll be able to see that in the picture. This was actually a really fun stitch. There is a companion piece that goes with this, which is actually a ladybird, or a hummingbird, sorry. And I fell in love with the hummingbird, which was in a cross stitch group, and then when I went searching for that project, found the ladybird, and just fell in love with it and decided that I had to stitch it. So this is just stitched on a 18 count Aida, which is blue, and I'm not sure where I got the fabric from. It may be a Country Stitch fabric, which is a local designer, a local fabric dyer here in New Zealand, and her name's Catherine from Country Stitch. So that is that project I actually got online. You can buy them from, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'll spell it for you. It's AJISAI. So this is, I'll give you just the name of it here, if I can try to get myself on the camera properly. So that's their website that you can go to, and they've got some really lovely charts on there. If you love black work, they've got some lovely charts, lots of different things on there. So it's worth a look, to have a look. Although I have been told that they do take projects from other people, which I don't believe is the truth, but until I have concrete evidence of that, then I'm happy to say that they've got a reasonable website. So one of the other designers that I really love is Autumn Lane Stitchery, and I'm sure everybody's heard of that. If you haven't, go and check them out. Aaron and Cassandra are amazing. He designs some amazing projects, and Cassandra is just lovely. She is the stitcher and he's like the designer, and together they make Autumn Lane Stitchery. So this is Let It Go, and I apologise about the lighting. My craft room's not set up, and it is actually quite late at night. So this is Let It Snow, and it is actually stitched on a opalescence, and it is from, if I remember correctly, hand dyed by Stephanie, and I absolutely love this project. I was never really a Christmas stitcher until I've sort of seen the little designs that they do. Yeah, so that's Let It Snow. Another one of their projects is Best Friends. So this is stitched on a piece of Frog and Tink fabric, which is purchased from JK Cross Stitch Supplies in Australia. If you Google that on Facebook, you'll be able to find them. And they don't actually have colorways, but they have codes on their fabric. So this is just like a mint color, and the project here is Best Friends. So it's a nice little full coverage piece, and that's from Autumn Lane Stitchery as well, which is one of my fun ones I love to do. Last year, Our Forest Embroidery, I'd never heard of them before, and then they popped up with a cell, which was a Alice in Wonderland cell. I love Alice in Wonderland. I also love Wizard of Oz, anything to do with either of those, and I'm obsessed that I have to actually own it. So this was the Alice in Wonderland cell. Oops, spread it out a little bit. And this was done over a 19-month period, or a 19 release period it was, every fortnight. I stitched this with some friends here in New Zealand, and we used to have a Friday night chat that we used to talk in, and that was always that we'll get very excited on trying to wait until the release come. So that's been stitched on a Country Stitch fabric called Hydrangea, and it's an 18 count Aida. Alice in Wonderland, such lovely patterns around with that. Another thing that you'll find out about me is that I love frogs. I know a lot of people don't like frogs when it comes to cross stitching, but I'm happy to have a frog at my house anytime, as long as it's one that I'm stitching and not one that I'm undoing. So this is called Tree Frog, and it's a Heaven and Earth design by Jo Lynch. She does have another one that's very similar, and it is more blues than it is with the oranges and reds and pinks, so, which is lovely. And that's just stitched on a purple 18 count Aida. That's usually my go-to fabric, is Aida. I do own some of the linen, which I sort of just had one of those buy all the things, but I haven't actually physically stitched on anything that's linen, so hopefully I'll have a chance to stitch something like that in the future. And even weave is, I do own lots of even weave as well, all the pretty coloured fabrics, but it's not something that calls for me unless I'm doing something that's got quarter stitches or half stitches or those sort of things. So here's another tree, a frog one, and this is Frog Pile. I'm not sure who the designer is of this one. I have seen it around quite often. This is stitched on a mint 18 count Aida as well, and it's one of my favourite stitches to do. So lots of back stitch on there, but I found that if I back stitched as I went, it wasn't such a drama of having to actually do it. My last one that I've got to show you, I do have others, but I'll show you them at another time. My last one that I wanted to show you was a Rendale Bothy Threads kit, and this is Bamboozled, which is just a little panda. It was a really fun stitch. This is on the called for fabric that comes with the kit and the floss, and it was a really easy project to actually to do. I've got quite a few Bothy projects to do, way too many probably, and I have completed some of the fairy tale ones, which are like the black shadow ones, and they are my favourites of the Bothys. So next I just want to show you a couple of my projects that are in my current whips that I'm working on, and you will notice that I've got quite a lot of just a paper copy of these charts, and it's mainly because I don't want the originals to get damaged, and I like to gift my patterns when I finish the project. I like to gift it on, so a lot of them I just do a working copy and then destroy that when I'm finished, and then hand on the original, which will still be in pristine condition. So this is Rosewood Manor, Dreaming of Tulips. This is what it'll look like when it's finished. I absolutely love Rosewood Manor, and I've only just sort of found them last year, so once I found them I sort of went a little bit crazy and bought quite a few, so I have quite a few on my stash. So this is Tulips, and that's just the start of it, which is the bottom corner. It's absolutely beautiful, and I'm using it on, stitching it on an 18 count ice blue Aida, which was purchased from Country Stitch in New Zealand. Oh, sorry, it's purchased from Stitch New Zealand, which is Elizabeth down in Christchurch, and it's stitched with all the cord for Weeks Dye Works. So that's a lovely stitch. I do also have the Sunflowers Iris and the Fuchsia also in the same range. They're in my current whips as well. So this is a Linen and Threads mystery sampler, the Peacock's Garden from 2019. This is still available on their website, which is free. This is part 12, and I've only just obviously started, but I've just done the peacock at the front here. And where I'm at with this one is just the middle part. So I'm just about to come up with to do the border, and then that will be in pink, and then I'll continue. The DMC that I've used for this is 905, which is the pink, and 996, which is the blue, and it's one of my favourite colours of the DMC range, so you'll see quite a bit of that where I have the choice to change the floss colours. It's a wonderful pattern to stitch on. Then I've got another Bothy one, Flight of the Bumblebee. Bees seem to be the flavour at the moment. Everybody's loving to stitch bees, so I really love this with the tulips and the big bee. And this is where I'm up to. So I've totally finished the bee, and just now doing the tulips. Actually, I may not have finished the bee because oh no, it's got two legs. Yep, that's right. So it's just the tulips that I need to do, and that's on the called for fabric with the floss from the kit. All Bothy patterns come in a kit. although now you can actually download some of them, the older ones, you can download them from their website. So this is one of my favourite designs this year, and it was used for my full coverage to try to get 22,000 stitches in it this year, which I have succeeded in. That was in May. I finished and I got to 23,000 stitches altogether. It is Tilton Crafts Adele number 2. I absolutely love this, and because it's there's actually quite a few colours in the pattern, but I decided to start with the black so that I could have all the outline done and then just work on in the middle. So this is where I'm at. Hopefully you'll be able to see the whole picture. Okay, let's go back a little bit. So I've stitched quite a few on this, as I said, 23,000, and I've still got quite a bit to do, but it's definitely a project that it's hard to put down. So I don't mind stitching one colour. It's actually quite rewarding when you've need to take a project somewhere and you don't want to sit there and count stitches. You can just fill in a whole block with the one colour, and that's actually quite enjoyable. My last one that I want to show you is my Thanksgiving quote with a sunflower. Now this has been purchased off Etsy, and this is the project here. If I just move that a little bit closer, you'll be able to see the Etsy name down the bottom. I want to have a look at that. They have some really nice designs. This really caught my attention. Sunflowers are just really bright, and I was obviously having a bad day. I went and purchased quite a few sunflower patterns on that day, and this was one of them. So that was purchased last year, and this is where I'm up to. So I've stitched it on a pink Aida, 18 count Aida, and I've got obviously all the wording done and started with the middle of the sunflower, and now just working out. I try to cut a complete, so now just moving out to the sunflower. This was actually quite a nice stitch as well. So that's just a few, just to give you a little bit of a taste of what my tastes are for cross stitch. I will actually stitch anything, and there's really not much that I probably don't have in my stash of, as in genre, of the kinds of stitching that you do. I do have Halloween, I've got Christmas designs now, and I've got quite a few other different sort of ones for seasons and things like that. So over time I will possibly do a stash dive and actually show you what I've actually got in my stash, the kind of patterns that I have. I do actually get a little bit obsessive with when some designers have like a series of a design. I don't like to just have one of them. I buy the whole lot in the whole range, and so that could sometimes mean that instead of just having 1 or 2 patterns that I know I'll definitely stitch, I could own 10 of them, and the others will probably sit in my stash for quite some time. So it gets a little bit obsessive, but I think everybody's aware that stitching and actually purchasing for your stash are 2 completely different hobbies, and I don't think I'm alone with that. So I'm sure you'll all agree with that's the way that it goes. Okay, so that's just really just a quick video, let you know that what I like to do, and hopefully you enjoyed listening to me talk to myself for a little while. Hopefully it wasn't too boring, and I look forward to making another one. Hopefully I'll do a whip parade going forward later in the year, and that will actually obviously prove how many whips I have, which I don't believe it matters how many whips you've got, as long as you enjoy the process and you do enjoy them. If I never ever get to finish all of that I have in my stash, then all I really think is that the next person that's going to inherit it from me is going to have an amazing time going through my stash and seeing all the fun things that I've got, and being able to stitch on or to enjoy or pass on to friends and family and things like that. So if you actually want to see when I post another video, please like and subscribe, make a comment, ring the bell if you need to be notified of when I'm around again, and hopefully we'll see you again. Thanks very much for your time, and have a lovely evening. Bye bye.